A long-awaited return for Jake Rooney, who has finally hit the pitch again in 24-25 with an appearance for Derby County's under-21s versus Aldershot. Rooney made an appearance for 61 minutes in the game, which is part of the inaugural National League Cup competition. Derby County under-21s weren't initially meant to be involved, but after a recent dropout from a Premier League 2 club, Derby County were inputted. It's a really good competition with the opportunity for youngsters to get opportunities against professional sides. Now, Derby County did come away with an unfortunate 3-0 defeat in a game which showed Aldershot to be a really, really good side in my opinion. There were some moments of magic and flares of brilliance across the course of the 90 minutes, but the most important thing for Derby County is that 4 of their first team players were able to make appearances on their returns from injury. Jake Rooney, the one who has been noted over the course of the last 12 months for his importance upon return from injury, he finally got 60 minutes on the pitch. Now, if you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, turn on that notification bell, and stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County and EFL content which is heading your way on this channel. Don't forget to check out channel memberships as well. I want to keep these videos going on for as long as possible, and all the support from you guys is really, really helpful. Now, obviously, when we talk about Jake Rooney, we have to talk about the tremendous issues he's gone through over the course of the last 12 months. And it has been very disappointing for Jake as a player who was breaking into the first team and really cementing himself as a first team regular for Derby County. It became a big issue when, in a game versus Bolton Wanderers at the Tough Sheet Community Stadium, he picked up a cruciate ligament injury in the first half of that game. And it was really disappointing to lose Rooney at such a pivotal time. And he, at that point, was really breaking into the first team. We'd obviously lost Kane Wilson and Joe Ward to injury really early on in the season, and Jake Rooney had stepped into that right-back role, and he'd done absolutely brilliantly over the course of his appearances. And it's one of those for me where I think Jake Rooney coming back into this season was probably hoping to be in and around the first team. Now, obviously, he played that first pre-season friendly versus Matlock Town, and I thought he put in a fairly decent performance for a player who was just on the back end of an ACL injury. But then, upon the trip, pre-season tour, whatever you'd like to call it, to Spain, he picked up another injury in training, which has seen him out since July. They were in Spain all the way up until now, which is about 3 or 4 months. And obviously, he'll be hoping to be back involved with the first team. I know he will obviously be training with them and things like that, but it's a really big opportunity now for Jake Rooney to get himself back within the team. Now, Jake Rooney signed for Derby County in 2022 under Liam Rossignol, and since then has gone on from strength to strength. He recently signed an extension up until 2026, where he'll be aiming to become a first-team regular for Paul Warne and Derby County in the Championship. Now, the biggest discussion that really needs to be had around this is the amount of competition that is in the positions that he can play. Now, that doesn't mean that Jake Rooney doesn't believe that he is better than those players and doesn't believe that he can get into the team. But if you look at the centre-back position, you've obviously got the likes of Nelson, Cashin, obviously Nat Phillips is in on loan, and Sonny Bradley all taking up those centre-back positions. And it's one of those where, obviously, you've got Forsyth who can slot in there as well as Ryan Niambi. And even Callum Elder did it a couple of occasions during pre-season. So it's one of those where that centre-back position is really full. You look at the right back option where he really went from strength to strength last season. I think he only made like 6 or 7 appearances, but he was absolutely unbelievable. The composure and presence on the ball was really nice, and I thought he did a really good job. But you look at that right back position now, you've got Wilson, Ward and Niambi, who are all great options on that right hand side, who all offer different things. I think obviously Niambi offers that defensive standpoint. With Wilson and Ward, you're looking to be a bit more attacking and probably more of a back 5 type right hand side defender, rather than what Niambi is, which is more of a 4-back, sit in, be defensive and rugged. And I think Jake Rooney is more of the Niambi style than the Wilson or Ward style, which I think sort of opens the door for more potential opportunities for him. Now, obviously, Jake Rooney can also play in the midfield, and with the signings of the likes of David Ozo, Tawanda Chiwa, Ibu Adams, Kenzo Heldmine and players like that, it obviously shuts down the options for a potential role in midfield. Obviously, that is where he played last night for the under-21s versus Aldershot alongside Liam Thompson. And it's one of those for me where I do think Jake Rooney has got a tough go of it. Now, we're going to get into that in just a moment, but as I mentioned a few minutes ago, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're pushing really hard on the channel to hit 1,500 subscribers by Christmas, well, Christmas, New Year time. So if you could hit that big red button and help support out the channel, that would be absolutely massive and really appreciated. So let's get back into the video now. For me, the ultimate option for me would obviously be to have Jake Rooney back involved in the first team and on the bench, getting some minutes in the Championship. But I do understand that given that he's had a 12-month injury layoff and then a 4-month injury layoff with his most recent injury, I do understand that he probably won't be in and around it over the course of probably the next month. I think he'll play quite a few 21s games over the course of October to November. Probably after the November international break, I think he might be back in and around it properly with the first team, where he's potentially involved in squads and things like that. Now, for me, obviously the competition has changed in all his positions, really, because obviously with Jake Rooney's injury, we brought in Ryan Nyambe, and obviously with Rooney not coming back in, we then brought in Ibu Adams for that midfield role. Obviously the likes of Kenzo and Ozo have also come in, so it really shuts down those opportunities as well. Now, it is a little bit different to the situation we was in 12 months ago. Obviously being in League One and in a tough spell when he came into the team, we was in quite a tough spell. It's very much a different situation for Derby County. We're really good at home now, but really bad away, and it's one of those where I really think that there could be a potential move on the cards for Jake Rooney. I think if you look at the quality in League One at the moment, you look at the likes of Birmingham City, you look at Wrexham, you look at Lincoln City, Charlton, Peterborough, Bolton, Burton, Rotherham, all of these teams in League One. Now, obviously, you look at the likes of Burton, Rotherham, Peterborough and Bolton, and they're not performing to the extent that they probably expected, and they might be looking at a Jake Rooney on the recovery from injury and thinking, you know what, he performed really well for Derby County last season, why not let's give him an opportunity in our squad in League One to become a regular and have a real opportunity to really push on his first team credentials. Now, I do think that whatever happens with Jake Rooney, it will just be a loan spell. I think he's in a pretty similar boat to that of Dejon Brown, where not necessarily, obviously, Dejon Brown hasn't had the injuries, but Dejon Brown is sort of on the periphery of the first team and not necessarily getting many minutes. Obviously, he's had a couple of substitute appearances, and I think that is where Jake Rooney will be. He might be on the bench, but not getting in, or he might be like the 21st man or whatever, because you can have 9 subs now, isn't it? So, for me, I think those two players are in very similar circumstances, and I think come the January window, you look at someone like Dejon Brown, you look at someone like Jake Rooney, they're going to want to be playing football to be able to push their career forwards, whether that be with Derby County or elsewhere. And I think that, yes, there's a long way to go to January. As I'm recording this, it is only the 16th of October, which is 2.5 months away from the January window opening, but I do think if Jake Rooney can find himself a loan spell where he's going to be a first team regular, I think it could be an amazing move, not just for him, but also for Derby County to give him that opportunity. But there may be a situation where Derby County want to keep an eye on him coming back in, where it comes to like physios and things like that, and Jake Rooney might want to keep the same people around him for recovery and things like that after games. So I do think, in my opinion, I think probably the best opportunity, given that everything stays how it is now by January, we'll obviously assess this again in probably a month or so's time as we head into December, but I personally think it's probably the best bet for a player like Jake Rooney to go out on loan, go and become a regular at a League One team, and really have an impact so that he can show what he can do without sort of that pressure of Championship football, Championship survival, and things like that. Now, obviously, I'm not saying he's going to want to run away from a fight with the likes of Sonny Bradley and Nat Phillips and Curtis Nelson and Erin Cashin, or the likes of Wilson Ward and Nyambe, but I certainly think that for the betterment of his career and his recovery, I do think he needs to play football so he can see how his body reacts, and I don't necessarily think that under-21s football will give him the levels of intensity and physicality that he needs to be fit and 100% for a game in the Championship. Now, there was occasions last night where you did see Jake Rooney in the National League Cups sort of jerk out of challengers, and Obviously, that is always going to be the case. We saw it with Craig Forsyth when he returned from his first ACL. We saw it with Will Hughes. We saw it with George Thorne. We've seen it time and time again. And it does take time for that mental block to go, to put yourself back in those positions. And obviously, it is going to be difficult. But a loan spell for Rooney, I think, would be the best bet to get himself back up to standard. But obviously, there's a long way to go until January. Obviously, injuries can happen. You've obviously got an international break in another month, which would probably give him a really good opportunity to get himself back in. You've obviously then got the December period where it's absolutely like it's destructive, that December period. We are going to be keeping across it on the channel, so make sure you do hit that subscribe button. And obviously, let me know your thoughts down below, because I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say on this one. I think Jake Rooney could be a really good player. I think he does need the opportunity to play. Is he going to get it here? I'm not entirely sure. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll catch you in my next video.